Hey everybody, welcome back to the Danger Planet. Today we're talking about Mythic Earth Day. Welcome back everybody. Today I'm joined by Jeff. Jeff, say hello.
Hello.
I'm sure that nearly 100% of the people that are listening to this know who Jeff is. Jeff, you may know as Defective Dice.
That's me.
So we had a cool thing that we did this weekend, right? That was like the event of the year, I think.
Yeah, and there were multiple examples of my dice being defective, so on brand.
Boy, were there. So for those of you who don't know, effectively this weekend, like late September, Jeff and I and our buddy Kevin, aka David, went down to New Jersey. And we went to the first Mythic Earth Day. What is Mythic Earth Day? It's like normal Earth Day, but way better.
Yeah. It's more mythic, you might say.
Much more mythic, and significantly OS. So Mythicos Entertainment is a company that makes one of the surprisingly one of the things that I have been more excited about. Like basically the thing I've been the most excited about that's not Malifaux this year, really.
And surprisingly underknown. Like it's not very well known out there.
Dude. They're up and coming, but it's wildly. It's one of these games that when people see it, they lose their fucking minds. And
Absolutely.
it's not just because the minis are the coolest minis I think that could possibly exist in a lot of ways. Every single vibe check that you could possibly have this game passes.
Yeah.
And if it's not obvious by some of the images that you may have seen so far, it is entirely based and inspired on the north, central, and at the moment south-ish American native cultures and their mythology, and the game is just the coolest game. So I guess I know where I first heard about it, but Jeff, where did you first see these guys and sort of hear about the game as a whole?
Yeah, it kind of goes back a ways, probably I want to say 4-ish years back. So originally they actually were working with Warlord, and the game started as a alternate skin or like an expansion in a way for Warlords of Erewhon, which is a game that Warlord does. And
they do a bunch of those, right? That's like their sort of premises that they
I
do.
think so. I honestly didn't look into it much, but what happened was at some point Mythic decided to sort of spin it off into their own thing and kind of separate from Warlord. And by all accounts, the relationship is still amicable between the two of them. It wasn't like some kind of beef thing. It was just like they had a different direction they wanted to go, so they decided to spin it off into their own thing. But around that time, a bunch of places that supported that carried Warlord stuff started kind of like putting the Mythic Americas stuff on clearance. So I actually found a starter set for the Aztecs that was like on a sale or on a clearance or whatever you want to call it, and it seemed like a good price. And I have always been super interested in Mesoamerican stuff. So when I saw that there was a game that had Aztecs in it, I was immediately interested. I knew almost nothing about the game. I didn't really know anything about Warlords of Erewhon or anything like that, but I got it just because I was like, well, I want some cool Aztec minis because that'll be sick.
Yeah, sure.
And it kind of sat in my pile of shame for quite a while. And then I think 2 years ago, I went to Gen Con and I went by the booth. I think I don't remember if I spoke to them much at the time, but I remember seeing a lot of the miniatures, and I must have spoke to them because they told me about the fact that they were kind of spun off into their own thing and they were expanding the game and going into new factions. And I think at the time the Inuit were pretty new, so they were showing off some of that stuff, and it obviously looked super awesome. So that's where I started really looking into it more. And it turned out that one of my locals who I've played other like historical games with was actually super into Mythic Americas already. He was like involved in the playtesting and stuff. So I spoke to him about it a little bit, and that's when I started really like building up my Aztec force and getting into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I definitely saw them. That was my first experience with them too. Was that Gen Con, which I think was 2022. And I was hanging out with we were hanging out a bit as well. But I was hanging out when I first walked by their booth with my friend Dave, who I've spoken about it a couple times, but basically we've started a small nonprofit that's still really working to get its stuff going, but it's called Medicine Games, and I have some indigenous background, although I'm still very early in the days of exploring this. Like my great grandmother was raised in Mi'kmaq territory in Nova Scotia, and then she moved down here, and that's like my sort of cultural background in a way that am just starting to discover. And so I was like, at the process of starting this journey with this like culturally native um, focused nonprofit. And my buddy Dave, who is also of First Nation descent, he started this company. I came on to help, and we were walking around, and we met Nelson, the guy who started and founded Mythicos, and talked to him for a little bit. I saw the minis because I was we had just gotten back into like mini gaming. We started spinning up Danger Planet. We were doing Malifaux hardcore at that point, and we were really into like small skirmish mini games, much like we are now. And I walked by this booth, and I was like, "Holy crap, these minis are awesome! What is this game like?" I walked away that weekend with the starter set. And then it was like the slow trickle process of, we're doing a lot of Malifaux coverage, and we're getting into that. And eventually, once I got the kit out and started painting it, got a couple friends involved. And, then basically a year goes by. We meet up for Gen Con last year, which you've seen, Jeff, but you put out a video about it. We put out a video. Actually, I don't think we did a Gen Con video coverage this year, but, stuff happened. And, that was one of the booths that we really wanted to talk about, right? So Jeff and I got together, and we walked up to their booth at Gen Con this year in 2024, and talked to them about this, and like, hey, we're both small indie wargame YouTube channels. What you got, right?
Yeah, and we shot a quick interview with Father Time, just kind of talking about the premise of the game and showing off some of the minis, because like you said earlier, this is the type of game where when you see those miniatures, they immediately grab people. Like it's hard to walk past that booth without seeing the Wendigo or the Thunderbird and having to stop to take a look at it.
Or their giant Wendigo that they have behind the booth every year.
The 8-9 foot tall.
I'll throw up a photo, I think, of the booth that we have. And it's one of those things that you walk by and it grabs you. So we struck up a conversation, and then down the line a little bit, Jeff sort of did more of the talking with them, and they were like, hey, we're gonna try and have this event. You guys want to come out?
So actually, originally, so I knew they were based in New Jersey, and I had spoken to Father Time about that, after either right before or right after we shot that interview.
Oh yeah.
And I mentioned to him that because I knew they also had a game store there, and tables to play and stuff like that. So I mentioned to him that we might try to plan a road trip to come out and kind of play some games and check out some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And he was all for it. And so then I kind of coordinated after Gen Con, after things kind of calmed down. And that's when they mentioned, so I think this is something I'd heard them mention previously, that they wanted to do a Mythic Earth Day type thing, but we decided why not kind of coordinate it together so that we can be out there for that. So that's kind of how it played out. Which
it all just sort of came together, right? So Jeff and I got to talking, and I was like, all right, how do we figure it out? And through various iterations, my plan was basically like, I could drive to New Jersey. It's a little bit closer to Jeff, I think, because you're in New York and I'm in Boston. But at the end of the day, I think what ended up happening is that I drove to Connecticut, thanks to Jeff's super rec, and found out that there's a ferry that goes to Long Island.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did I pronounce that right? Long Island?
Long Island, that's it. Yep.
Yeah. I got on a ferry, took it. Jeff picked me up, and then Jeff, Kevin, and I drove down to Mythicos in New Jersey, Randolph, New Jersey.
There you go.
And then we got there. So I guess as a brief interlude, right? Like, obviously we both cover a shit ton of Malifaux. That's like our vibe. And like the aspects I think that draw a lot of people to Malifaux are, alternating activations, the fact that it's kind of small skirmishy in general, and in those respects, we kind of have a lot of overlap with um, uh, Mythic Americas. It is a dice game, which is wild that Jeff got involved, I think.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him roll dice before, and it's not a pretty sight.
It took me a
Um,
while to get over that bit, but there's
yeah,
enough else there that I had to forgive the dice thing.
yeah. And so right now they have 7 factions on the game, which you can, well, obviously you've seen probably some pics of the cases at Mythicos Entertainment, but they have Aztecs and Inca, they have Mayans, they have Western Federation, they have Tribal Nations, which is the faction that I basically play. Aztecs is the one that Jeff plays. They have Taino, which is their newest faction, and then they have the Inuit, which I think is everything. I was just doing that from memory. In hindsight, I probably should have pulled up the webpage.
Yeah,
But
no, that's all the current factions. They've already announced Chachapoya, should be coming at the end of this year, which is like they kind of lived north of the Incas in South America and have like a dual biome between like up in the mountains and then also down in the rainforest. And then they're also, I think, right after that, like almost simultaneously, going to be doing People of the Totem, which is your like northwestern Native American.
yeah, Pacific Northwest stuff. Which this weekend, we'll get to that in a minute. But we got to see some of the early drafts of the People of the Totem rules.
Brandon was like, "I need to play the grossest, most overpowered faction in the game," and they were like, "Well,
yeah,
we
what do
got
you
you."
got for me?
Yeah.
And they were like, here you go. So we're both pretty new into the actual like gameplay itself, and the time I think to get into anything more than is great because they just put out their second edition draft of the rulebook, which isn't so much a second edition, like it's not massively different than it's ever been, but a lot of streamlining has happened. And
Yeah, it's kind of like a cleanup and consolidation.
yeah,
There's some rules that were kind of redundant, like there was weapon profiles that were effectively the same thing, so they sort of streamlined a little bit of that and cleaned
yeah,
up some of the wording and that kind of stuff. So it
yeah.
is definitely a good time because like that rule book is a little easier to read, but it's not like they didn't completely change the game around. So
Yeah, and one of the I honestly think at this point in time is a bare minimum type of standard thing, but Games Workshop, all of their rules are free online, right? You can check out their rulebook. Now we'll link that below. In their download center, you also have the force rosters, which are basically the faction rules for everything, as well as like all the special rules and like the magic and other stuff. The game plays roughly alternating activations. They have their own really unique initiative mechanic where like every unit gets a die, a d6. You roll those d6 together at the start of the phase, and then when it's your, you go number by number, alternating as best you can. Activating one unit at a time while you're in this, with all the 6s that you rolled, and then you move on to 5s and 4s and 3s. And we'll have a more in-depth gameplay coverage, as well as an intro sort of game that Jeff shot while we were there, going up on his channel pretty soon.
But it's a really interesting mechanic because it's not it's not just I go, you go, and it's not just alternating. It's sort of somewhere in between, and it's randomly determined. But it's determined at the beginning of the turn, so you know what the process will be. So it's got this randomness. So there can be like you'll get 2 or 3 activations in a row sometimes, or you'll lose some activations, but you are going to know about that from the beginning of the turn, so you can kind of plan ahead for it. So it ends up being a really interesting dynamic. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and then throwing into the mix some of the bigger, scarier models that can activate multiple times, twice a turn, and you get a really, really interesting dynamic into the turn. The scheme strategy sort of pool thing as well really is reminiscent of LFO. You got like a main scenario, and then you have a secondary objective that you're trying to achieve. I might be wrong on this, but it looks like you're at capped at about 8 points, which is hilarious. But it's it's a really, really neat game. I would definitely recommend checking it out, and check out all the video coverage that we're going to do here. But back to Mythic Earth Day, right? So we had this event that they planned. They invited us down. We went out. It was amazing. So we got in Saturday morning. There were a bunch of people in the store. Normally they said, I think they have 40K on Saturdays a lot, but there was like 2 40K players, and the other whole game room was just like full of Mythic Earth folks, as well as a bunch of people that had driven out from all around. And,
just to clarify something, because I'm realizing that this might be confusing for people listening. We will use Mythic Earth and Mythic Americas somewhat interchangeably because they kind of use both to refer to the game. Mythic Americas sort of refers to the beginning of the game now as it stands, where all the factions are drawn from the Americas. But Mythic Earth kind of encompasses everything outside of that, which they are very soon going to be expanding into, like the
Yeah, they all. I
Southeast
mean,
Asia and then
yeah,
Asia itself, and then eventually Africa and Europe as well. So we
yeah.
will use both of those interchangeably. Don't be thrown off by that.
Yeah, and I think also earlier in the planned factions, I think Polynesia is something that they've announced that they're actively
Polynesia, I
working
think, will
on.
be the one after People of the Totem, but
Yeah.
that stuff is sort of still up in the air because there was a little bit of talk while we were there about them maybe doing Nazca. So I don't
Ooh.
know where that will slot in. I kind
Yeah,
of hope they
dude.
do Polynesia just to kind
Oh
of
boy.
expand out a little bit, but Nazca sounds really dope, so I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. But I mean, ultimately, they have a lot of cool stuff cooking, and
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see Mythic Earth as kind of the main thing, um, happening, because they're gonna expand outside of just the Americas, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
it'll all be interoperable. Like it'll kind of be one game. It's just they're sort of using both names depending on what part of the game they're talking about. So it may be a little confusing if you're not familiar with that. I know that was a little bit of a thing that came up a couple days ago, but don't be thrown off by that.
yeah. So basically, we get there, and right away, they're showering us with free stuff that we got. Everybody who showed up had like a cool. Limited like edition model from the Kickstarter that they did, because in addition to their war game that they've made, they've recently kickstarted a 5e D&D supplement for a role-playing game, Heroes of Mythic Earth. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gonna have like a bunch of unique factions set in this world, and then also like they develop their own. There's a little bit of their own lore that they've added to the sort of mythologies from these cultures that they're dealing with,
yeah.
and that book is gonna expand that out a lot, like the original story they're writing.
Yeah, and they have a graphic novel. They have a couple, I think a couple short stories available as well.
Yeah.
And so they had that. They had some of the preview pages for the upcoming stuff, for the D&D supplement, and also they had a bunch of games happening, right? So almost every single designer that works for the the company was there. I think they were just missing one. So
Yeah, I
all
think he
the
got sick.
yeah, yeah, and in addition to all the people who came out, so basically it was like everybody got with a designer or like a rules guy, and they got down to some games. But obviously Jeff and I are too cool,
Yeah.
so we weren't like in the regular, what do you call it there? We weren't with the plebs,
Right.
and they were like, hey,
We
you
went to the
get,
VIP section behind
yeah,
the velvet rope.
yeah, there was a velvet rope. I mean, there wasn't, and we were just on one of the tables in the rooms. But Jeff and I had played in a game, where Kevin shot the sort of the camera work for the battle report, where we played with the people of the totem against just Aztecs. And did like a whole breakdown of a whole 1,000-point game, and it was super super rad. So the people of the totem are like Pacific Northwest, a lot of water based stuff, and they've been working on trying to build more terrain rules in, and bring in like a water mechanic, and that's kind of what the people of the totem do. They start where they're coastal.
Coastal
Very
Raiders.
coastal raiders was the rule, but they basically one side of the board gets a 6-inch water zone, and then they have canoes that they ride up and down it, and very very cool game design for sure. But we got to do that for a while. So the two designers who are in charge of writing the rules, Mike and Eric, I believe, if I'm not crazy, I think Old Man Eric, yeah, and Haldivar. Um, um, so they're the two guys that basically are leading the design on this faction, and they were like, "You guys want to try out this new faction?" We were like, "Yeah, of course we want to try out this new faction. What are you talking about?" So we broke it out, proxies to models, and played a whole game, and it was pretty rad.
Yeah, we've seen some like concept arts, and I think even some renders they've shown of those models, and they look really cool. They have this like very unique like wooden slatted armor, and they use like these clubs that have animal bones that stick out of them, so they look pretty nasty. So it's a really unique looking faction, and that mechanic I think is super interesting because the game is it's bigger than a skirmish game. You have little squads. If anybody's ever played Blood and Plunder, I would say it's somewhat analogous to that in terms of like the game size.
Yeah,
But
I like to think about it in like War Machine size, where it's not like a
yeah,
full arm game, but it is
yeah, that's probably a better touchstone for people that know that game. But it's the games that I've played before then, you definitely do a little bit of like marching up the board at the very beginning, because it's a, it's a 4x6 in a full size game, and you're gonna kind of be jockeying for position early on. But the water deployment rules kind of basically just mean you can deploy anywhere up that water feature or any other water feature that you happen to decide to put on your board. So
Yeah.
you were right up in my business very early
Oh,
on.
I
Yeah.
was right up in your business. I was right up in your business and building altars for the gods.
Right.
Like you do.
And it's funny because going back to the sort of Malifaux comparison with the strategies and schemes, we didn't even play or no, we did have secondary
No, we did.
objectives,
Yeah,
but
yeah. We played a full game.
yeah, depending on what your secondary objective is, having that ability to deploy can really allow you to sort of blitz out and get and like grab a bunch of points very early on.
Yeah.
Which is somewhat reminiscent of Malifaux, because there are definitely play styles where it's like, okay, secure all your points right away and then just try to blunt the counterattack from your opponent.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean the sort of mechanical features, we'll save for another video. But suffice to say, it's really really intriguing what they've done with their rule set. And the game uses D10s for most of its mechanical stuff, so like attacks, defense rolls, all of that kind of stuff. The D6s are really just for the initiative, and it's a really really like sort of quick, neat game. Right, I think I think our total playtime for our 1,000-point game was about 3 hours, and we were both really like learning and dealing with a new faction. But
yeah, and we also took an interlude in the middle of that for you to interrogate them about some of the rules that you wanted to.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, it's almost like I have a shtick. But super super neat stuff. Then we got to hang out with some of the designers and the owners for the evening. We went out to dinner and sort of plowed them for more information. We got all the cool stuff. We spent the night in New Jersey and went back the next day. Hanging out with Father Time. He sort of walked us through the battle report that we did on Jeff's channel. I was doing a little bit of the rules answering videography. Oh no, I didn't videography. I just took photos.
Yeah, I was gonna have him kind of be the narrator for that, or like walk us through a lot of the rules, but unfortunately he has a job and he had to like actually work while that was going on. So
because in addition, like the game store, they just run that game store,
right? So we kind of like we asked him a few questions off camera and stuff, but mostly it was me and you kind of just walking through the rules. But I think that should hopefully, I haven't edited it yet, but hopefully that'll be a good way to learn for folks who may not know much about the game at all.
Yeah, we'll do. I think we're going to do some more online stuff too, as well as like physical stuff. We'll see how shooting battle reports in my new apartment works. Because in addition to picking up a couple things for myself, I got all the homies their starter sets, and we're going in New England.
We bought also so much Mythic America.
Oh, dude, yeah, we
did. My trunk was full.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had to steal some of Jeff's canvas shopping bags because I literally couldn't carry all of the Mythic Earth stuff I got on the ferry back.
I'll probably have the vlog up roughly around the time that this video goes up. So if you want to see all of the loot, check that out.
And I think ultimately, in addition to that, we bought so much stuff that they were gonna throw in some free stuff, and we were like, now let's see if we can do a giveaway. So
they do like a thing on their website where if you buy 6 starter boxes, or I'm sorry, you can get all 7 starter boxes, and it's roughly the price of 6, or maybe even a little less than that. So we had definitely bought enough, and I was like, hey, shouldn't we just get a free starter box? And they were like, yeah, of course. And then we decided, what if instead we gave that to someone else?
Yeah, buddy. So we're gonna put those up, the deets with that, I think a bit later, with some of the content that we filmed there.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely keep an eye on both of our Discords, because that's probably where we'll mainly talk about it, as well as the channel. And if you're interested in checking out this game, like, they have a Discord, you just head up to their website. There's a link there. They're super super responsive. It's they got people from all over the place getting into this game, and it's where they sort of announce all of their, like, hey guys, we're doing a Mythic Earth Day, come on down.
They're also running
from time to time.
Yeah, and they're running a
campaign right now.
A league, a campaign right now. So if you are interested in getting into it, it's sort of designed to be like a slow grow. So if you're just fresh into the game, it's a perfect time to do it. And there's going to be prizes, and there's going to be I think they're still planning to conclude it with a tournament. in their at their place in New Jersey. So I don't know what the details are on that yet, but it should be sometime beginning like early next year if they do that. So.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, ultimately, this game's rad. Check it out. I'm entirely like smitten with this game. Jeff's super into it, and I think that you will be too if you give it a try. All the rules are free online. It's the 32 mil bases, so if you got like Space Marines, that'll do it. And the starter sets are also pretty insane, right? They're usually 21 models. They're about $100 if you buy them on their website, and it's like $5 a model, and they're good. They're like good quality stuff.
Yeah, I think all of the starter boxes now, they're going to come with like a general and some bodyguards, a ranged unit, 2 melee units, and then a monster unit. Because one of the really cool things, I'm sure people have seen the pictures as we've been talking, but one of the really cool things about this is that they draw some things from mythology from these cultures. So you'll have big monsters or animals or spirit. There's a whole variety of things, but all of the starters come with at least a set of 3 of those. So you'll get big turtle things called Caracaracole, or you'll get Sasquatches,
yeah,
or
the
you'll
Sasquatches
get polar bears, like
boys, polar bears, the Nanook Guardians. Yeah, they're just so rad, and the behemoths are the coolest models. And for big model kits, they're like $80. It's not bad.
Yeah,
they're all
super
like 3D
nice.
printed resin. They're super high quality. And all the little warrior figures are metal, which has its pluses and minuses, but they use these neat MDF bases too, so they're like super easy to drill into if you want to magnetize them, and they just hold all the stuff if you want to do cool bases and things.
Yeah, one of the coolest things is that the behemoths come with casted bases, so they have like seen it, like a lot of them are like standing in ruined temples or up on a rock or whatever,
or smashing into the ground with their giant Ailish fists.
Right. Yeah, the Ailish is so cool.
Yeah,
but all that stuff is really cool because it really those models are giant, they're behemoths, they're supposed to be like very impactful and have a presence on the table, and having that big scenic base to stand on really goes far to sell that, I think.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm looking at my Quetzalcoatl right now, and I'm so scared to paint that thing, but it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get a Wendigo, and I sort of kind of picked up Western Federation as well. So,
irresponsible.
Never. All right, Mister. I have Taino and Aztec and Mayan, and
I don't have Mayan. I just have all of the Taino now. I brought home so much Taino.
Yeah. Jeff bought, I think, a 2,000 point Taino army.
Not quite 2,000, but it's close. I have 2,000 on Aztecs that are almost entirely painted now, and I have I think it's right around 1,500 of Taino because they're like very much a horde army. So it's a lot of models.
Gotcha. Did you get enough Kokies? Is that
I didn't get enough Kokies. Okay, I would like to file a formal complaint. You get a couple of Kokies, which are these adorable little spirit frogs.
I'll throw the picture of their ones that they have in the case up now.
They're amazing,
awesome bases. Yeah. Oh my god!
And when you kill an enemy when they're near your behemoth in Taino, you can turn the enemy into bases of these Koki frogs. And the behemoth comes with 2, but I want more because they're amazing. And unfortunately, they didn't have any left, which kind of makes sense. I can't be that mad because it makes sense. Everyone probably just goes there and buys Kokies, so that's why they're sold out.
Yeah, of course. I mean, literally, they had whole trays going on when we, when we put them out, because they just go through them all the time. You can't actually hire them. You only get them if units die near their behemoth. But boy, are they cool. I really love these little frog boys. We're kind of getting rambly, to be honest. So I'm going to cut this off now because we could just sort of talk about all the cool stuff that happened this weekend for a long time.
I mean, you brought up the Kokies.
I know. I just wanted to. You were saying they're cool. They're so cool. So thank you so much for listening. Check out the Discord. Check out Jeff's Discord. Check out Jeff's channel if you haven't. Defective Dice. Thank you so much to our Patreons. You guys are the best, and you were entirely responsible for letting me get on that ferry this weekend, which was very helpful because it would have been a long swim elsewise. That's what I got. This is a game that I think we're going to do a lot of coverage on going in the future. And if you've seen our couple of Conquest episodes, Brendan and Ronnie are both on board. It's got the Brendan seal of approval, which comes few and far between. That Malifaux doesn't even have that. So, he's wrong, but it's fine. but we're gonna do some stuff like that. We'll have our the battle that Jeff and I fought up here. The Jeff and Kevin intro battle will be up on his channel soon, as well as Jeff's video. Doing his vlog thing that he does, and likely, to be honest, that's probably going to go up before this. But you check it out. That's what I got. You got anything you want to plug or anything you want to talk about before we go?
No, I think in addition to all that, I think we've kind of talked off air of a few other ideas of videos we want to do with them. So
yeah, buddy.
That's probably going to be a little bit further into the future, but definitely keep an eye out for that stuff because they are extremely eager and willing to talk about the game and come on and talk about different things. So they're hopefully we're going to have all sorts of cool things coming.
Yeah. And also, if you haven't already, come check us out at PAX Unplugged. Mythicos Entertainment is going to be there. Weird is going to be there. And we're going to be planning and running some Malifaux events there. So if you haven't heard about that, now you have. Check it out. At the very least, stop by and say hello. And we'll see you then. Say goodbye to the internet, Jeff.
Goodbye to the internet, Jeff.
Bye.
Can you make me a life-size cookie?
Yeah, get in the comments, guys.